continue to run the race, and we look forward to a very insightful conversation. We're now at the last segment of this nuclear conversation. I will invite on the stage the members of the panel that will contribute to this afternoon's discussion. In the world today is why should countries develop nuclear technology? If you could take the audience through, what are your perspectives on this one?
Thank you very much, DDG, for the question. That's always the biggest question, why bother with nuclear? And I think if we take it to the context of South Africa and Africa as a continent, why bother indeed? Nuclear does present, and I think because I'm in a nuclear side event, I'm speaking to the converted, but it's important to re-emphasize the point that nuclear does offer us a very huge opportunity for industrializing Africa, which is very much unindustrialized, and in some areas currently deindustrializing. So we need to get back the continent on track so that it can be on par with other global nations. The first enabler that nuclear offers in this industrialization process is electricity generation. It's a known fact that the electricity availability index talks to how developed nations can be. So energy access, affordable energy, which is what nuclear offers, does give that. That's just the enabler, which is electricity. There's another aspect, which is more the work that we do in NEXA around using nuclear for other purposes. I always say I don't like to be referred as other. It's other industrial applications, but I will take that for now. We are producing isotopes, which are used for cancer treatment, cancer diagnosis and treatment globally. NEXA being one of the top four suppliers in the world. It is very important that we intensify in that process of producing those much needed isotopes to give those cancer treatments around the globe and save lives. We're talking about in the order of about 15 million patients being treated from isotopes that come from NEXA per year. That's the first aspect on the other applications. We also talk about the potential in the desalination process, where we know that water that must be used in households and industries is important. It offers that opportunity for desalinating water. That's another industrial application. The third one is that there's a huge application in agriculture. And in agriculture, we talk about, for example, developing drought-resistant crops, talk about sterile insect programs, talk about ground hydrology that is being monitored using isotopes. So there's a huge, a vast application of the nuclear technology around the world, and we need to intensify the use of that in the global African context. But the outcome of that is really the socio-economic benefit. At the height of building a plant of the size of 4,000 megawatts, we've seen it, we've got empirical evidence. We're talking about, at the peak of construction, about 17,000 jobs. This country needs those jobs. So that we've seen it in coal, it would be seen also in nuclear. At the operational level, nuclear plants do offer about, I can talk about Kubek, the GM is here, he was very modest in introducing himself, Mr. Nduli. He employs about 1,800 people. And those are the jobs that are solid jobs, reliable jobs, they've got long span. And if we come to NEXA, which is the research institute producing isotopes and other chemicals and other things, we employ currently more than 1,600 people. That is important for this country to go forward. And during construction, when we build the multi-purpose reactor, we anticipate that we'll be getting to a point of between 5,000 and 8,000 employees during the peak of construction. And we're still solidifying that. So all I can say is that there's a huge opportunity for industrializing this continent with an economic spin-off of the much needed jobs and an industrialized nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that input, GCO. Let's turn to our attention from Mr. Ryan Connor from the Rosatom. Can you give us your perspective? What is your assessment of the current readiness level of the SMR technology for the development in Africa, and what steps are being taken to accelerate its adoption? and integration into the region's energy mix.
DDG, thank you very much. I think we heard earlier that perhaps not all SMRs are at a commercialization stage at this point. There are over 120 different designs globally that are being worked on at various stages. But the crux of the matter is there's really two at this point in time, like the previous speaker mentioned, that are operational. So in our discussions across the continent with our partners, most of them, like South Africa, don't want to embark on a folk or first-of-a-kind project. So I think we are still somewhat away in terms of a large-scale rollout of SMRs across the continent. That said, the Russian Federation does have the floating nuclear power plants. It is something that we've garnered a huge amount of interest from the continent on and from the globe. And I think that this really is perhaps one of the shorter term solutions for the continent in terms of achieving their nuclear ambitions. A lot of that is around the policy as well as the legislation and licensing of these particular power plants or vessels. It's also around the risk as well as the liability, and from a floating perspective, a lot of that can be completely shifted to the vendor itself as opposed to the country. So I think from a newcomer country perspective, really it is a good solution in terms of embarking, and we've been doing a lot of work in terms of that. There are also a number of nations in Africa, and we've been working with a number of them that are embarking on small modular land-based reactors. They have done a great amount of work with IAEA, as was mentioned earlier, including Ethiopia, Rwanda, Ghana. And I think that as an industry, we need to work with our partners in terms of helping them achieve what they want to achieve. That said, there are some stumbling blocks along the way. One of them really is around licensing and policy, particularly for newcomer countries. In certain instances, even though SMRs make sense for a country, to embark on a 10-year key milestone approach for 100 megawatts is also quite challenging. And I think these are things that we really need to look into as an industry and solve together. From that perspective, I do still see a huge opportunity for big block, particularly in countries like South Africa, where you have an established grid, you have an established regulator, and you are able to deploy big machines.
With that, thank you very much, Ryan. Let's hear from Mr. Wang from the IEA. The IEA has recently published its nuclear capacity projections to 2050. Can you tell us what the IEA projections are for Africa, and what role would the SMR possibly play in the capacity expansion of the continent from your perspective?
Thank you. Thank you very much for this question. I think Angel Paye already gave a very comprehensive reflection on this projection. I don't want to repeat what he already showed in the slides. So in general, we see great momentum by 2050, both under the agency projection on the low case and the high case projection. And also we see the great potential for new SMR after, as Angel said, after 2035, and there is some potential role to play by SMR. But I wanted to mention that when people talk about SMR, and SMR is not a new concept. It has already existed from the beginning. It's just about the size, how you define is up to generation capacity, install capacity up to 300 megawatt. So there are many different kind of design in even the older time when people start a nuclear program in last century, I think 70 years ago. So today, I think that the difference is because I think you can look at the agency's publication talking about SMR, and we capture mainly 68 reactor, which is already which is still in a very active progress. Because we heard people talk about 80 different designs, 120 designs, but we think some of them still not really moving ahead. But we focus on some 68 designs, which is moving significantly in the past years, including the 14 light water-based SMRs, and also 14 these high-temperature gas-cooled reactors, and also 13 micro reactor, 11 this molten salt, and also 10 sodium or lead faster reactor, and also plus some maritime based reactor. So you can see, comparing to today's dominant reactor technology in this larger scale reactor, which is light water based. So the SMR, today's technology, actually 2/3 of the technology are non-water based. So this reflects some kind of the interest that people want use to find some additional merit of the SMR in addition to the power generation. So that's why you see on his presentation talking about this temperature, including molten salt, high temperature, which can really bring some additional value for SMR to contribute to decarbonization of other sectors, especially harder-based sectors. If you the molten salt reactor, temperature can over 500 to 700, and high temperature can even go 950. Could be also suitable for the hydrogen production. But it's here not reached yet. China has one 200 megawatt HTR in operation for 2 years already, but this design has not reached that 950 degree yet. But as this is the direction, people can continue to work on. So in terms of maturity of the technology, I think currently, I think a lot of them, experiments show that this technology is already quite mature. It's just a lack of the demonstration. So I think who actually will critically demonstrate that the economic value of SMR is very crucial, because I think for countries, especially the developing countries, they are facing some kind of a constraint, financial constraint. So that's why we are looking at maybe SMR maybe is good for their start as a starter, because they might face less pressure of the financing pressure comparing to larger reactors. So that's what I think it's a different kind of a consideration which showed help to have this interest in the SMR. But at the end of the day, what technology and what site technology will be selected should steer based on the country condition. Some countries have a large population, a large infrastructure, could be also use a large scale reactor plus SMR. And also some country has some additional demand needs for this decarbonization of other sectors. They probably need to look at also new technology, which is I mentioned is a high temperature and the molten salt. So agency, we have this publication to capture all this the merits, and also we also have a publication to show that is how country can prepare themselves for financing, because there are different also financing model and a different revenue model for country to consider. If you look at the recent case in the Belarus, in the UAE, they have a different approaches. But at the end, you see the UAE, they mainly rely on their sovereign wealth. And Bangladesh mainly rely on the vendor financing. So I think that there are different kinds of opportunities for country to consider based on the country condition. But the most important thing I want to emphasize here is with some kind of level playing field prepared by the country. The government backing is very crucial for country, also investor, to get the confidence for investing in the nuclear, regardless in the developed world, also in the developing world. So agency stand ready to help countries to prepare their infrastructure, including how to prepare the funding and the financing, which is one of the 19 issues for their embarking nuclear program.
Thank you. Let's turn to our colleague, Ms. Emma Wong from APRI. So what is the strategic role does APRI see for SMRs in Africa's energy transition, particularly in countries with limited grid capacity and financing constraints?
Thank you for the question, DGG, and asking me to be on this panel. I think Africa has great potential, and SMRs can just bring bring more opportunity with that potential. With a limited grid capacity, limited financing, that's true. But with limiting financing doesn't mean that's only if you're looking inwards only. So I'm going to say the financing part is really going to, how many partnerships, how many collaborations can you do across the world by showing what other value there is to building out a lot of this infrastructure. I think with limited grid capacity, however, that is very limiting. And SMRs, or small modular reactors, can help with microgrids, with maybe even remote areas that don't have an interconnect to a larger grid. So if you have a local mining operation that has, not greater connection to other grids, either regionally or even across borders, perhaps, if you're looking into the future, an SMR can say you need, only, 200 megawatts. You don't need something very big, but then it gives you the option to grow when you want to grow as well. So having optionality and that flexibility actually can create a lot of value moving forward. I think it's already been mentioned on this panel and by Henri that besides just electricity, a lot of these SMRs, small modular reactors, can also bring, heating in a different form of energy. And that energy can contribute to district heating. That means heating of homes, heating of residences. So you don't have to use electricity to heat. You can use water heat or steam heat. So it's another different type of infrastructure that's actually easier to build than an electric one. Additionally, if you already have a lot of high heat as well, you can actually use that industrial heat. So instead of burning more coal or burning more any type of fuel, you can use that extra heat to actually improve your energy efficiency of industry as well. And one additional thing that I always think is really interesting, if you want to build data centers, you can have a nuclear power plant, as an SMR, help power that. But the excess heat from both the SMR and the data center can produce heat that you can reuse. So you don't have to lose the energy, you can reuse it. And that part of that infrastructure can create so much value from just a proposition of being able to build out and using SMRs, especially for Africa that has so much potential.
Thank you. Let's come back to the group executive for generation, Mr. Bheki Nxumalo. As Koeberg is the only operational nuclear power plant in the continent, and with a growing number of countries looking to include nuclear, what's your comment, can you share in terms of the importance of safe operation of nuclear power plant, and how can the different countries collaborate in this regard?
Thank you very much, DDG, and good evening, good afternoon to everyone. I think DDG, if I listen to all the speakers this afternoon, one key message that it should resonate with all of us who are either nuclear operator or SPAT is this safe operation of the nuclear asset. I think that is one non-negotiable. And I think we are grateful to organizations like IAEA for that role that they play to bring everyone to that reality. I think the DG for IAEA as well, he expressed this issue to say the safe operations of the nuclear asset is the non-negotiable part of it. But the good thing as well that for countries, even for us, I can say that from experience. I mean, we came from the area where we were experiencing high levels of load shedding in this country. But one message we always say to the CNO sitting there and the team at Koeberg, we will not take any shortcuts, even if it takes another week of blackouts on this country. That is the culture that has been driven on the running of the nuclear facilities, and I think it's important that we continue with that so that every country knows that, because the nuclear, we're actually one family. So what you do affects everyone. cannot have a localized space because it's critical that we continue on that as well. So there's no space for really, and I think the role of IAEA has never been so critical than now. I think earlier on there was discussions about the regulators, capacitations of regulators and all of that. So we need now to start also looking at the risk of the scales. You know, I think if you look at the numbers, I don't think we have actually looked at, maybe AEI can also assist with that to say, how do we make sure we have got competent people that are going to be running the nuclear facilities as well? Because we cannot afford any accident or any risk in any part of where it is being operated. But the good things, we've got organizations like EPRI, AEI, with a lot of use cases. So there's no one who needs to run it. And for that, we are quite grateful. And we can all call on to this already, a lot of use cases that we can learn from. So there's no need for anyone really to, this is not a space for heroism. It is the space where we all need to understand that what we're dealing with is quite safe if it's handled correctly. We all follow the procedures, strict protocols in terms of how we run, operate, and we behave when we're dealing with this facility. So I think if we follow those guidelines, we will not have any issues in the nuclear facilities as well. Thank you, DTG.
Right, thank you very much, Mr. Nxumalo. Let's turn our attention now to Mr. Ridwan Bagaddin, the CEO of Enradi. Something we sometimes hear, Mr. Bagaddin, is that there is no solution for dealing with nuclear waste, and particularly spent fuel coming from nuclear facilities, like Kubek Nuclear Power Station, for instance, and Nexus Safari's reactor, and that this is seen as an Achilles heel for nuclear. Are there solutions for disposal of nuclear waste already known? And what does the future look like in this space from your perspective?
Thank you, DDG, and good evening all. The plans for nuclear waste and specifically high-level waste, used fuel, those have become quite clear over the last few years in terms of, and the solution, the IAEA-driven solution, together with the industry, is that of deep geological storage and a deep geological repository being established. Now, and South Africa also has the same approach in terms of what we envisage for how we deal with used fuel in the long term. And this must be taken into account. What must be taken into account is that we implement the facilities, the deep geological repository when needed. And what's really been pleasing to see, and I think it was actually DG Grossi that was at the Onkalo facility in Finland, which is the first and the most advanced, and the first that will be in operation, deep geological repository. And he declared that to be a game changer for the industry, the fact that that is there now, because it really talks to the final solution for the final concern that people may have around nuclear. Now, safe operations is a given, and it's clear now we have a plan, we have a clear way forward for how we dispose of used fuel in the long term through the deep geological repository. And other countries are following, Sweden, France, China. They've established laboratories a long time ago, over the last few decades, and have advanced their facilities as well. And South Africa now will follow in that footsteps. Our project is still in its infancy because of where we are as an industry. We have a well-established capability in terms of managing low and intermediate level waste. We have our own facility, also the only radioactive waste disposal facility on the African continent. So we've got 40 years of operation thereof already. So it's really just the used fuel that needs to come to the party. For South Africa, 2065, we've got our plans to have a deep geological repository established, and that means starting a lot of that work today to be able to do that.
Right, thank you very much, Mr. Bagardin. Let's turn our attention now to the regulator. Mr. Orion Phillips, what role does the NNR envisage to play for making a contribution to nuclear energy for a nuclear-capable Africa?
Thank you, DDG. Yes, the NNR is quite eager to collaborate and cooperate with our international counterparts on the African continent. We do realize that the regulator plays a very important role in the licensing of facilities. So we have experience in, as you've heard from the previous speakers, we've got experience in regulating Kubec Nuclear Power Station for the past 40 years. We've also recently gone through the long-term operation in terms of looking at how it needs to be regulated. So we do realize we're an important part of the technology chain, and we're eager to share our expertise and know how with our fellow countries on the African continent. So one of the ways we do this is also to encourage partnerships and look at bilateral agreements with countries. And this is the mechanism that's in place for us to be able to share our experience and go through the aspects of licensing. We also participate very regularly with the IAEA in terms of the respective safety standards where it comes to nuclear safety, transport safety, radiation safety, and as well as waste safety. So we are able to stay abreast of the latest safety standards. And as we've heard from the previous speakers, safety is a high priority, and at the NNR, we're committed to ensure that we uphold the standards of safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Let's turn our attention back to the next GCO. Why should Africa focus on nuclear technology?
Thank you, DDG. I think just to re-emphasize the earlier point that I made is that we really have an opportunity in the sense that we do have the skills. We are currently operating the research reactor at Nexa. ESCOM is operating the power reactors. We do have the skills. We've seen that in the recent past, because of the stagnation of our nuclear program, both for research and power reactors, skills have lost this country. People have gone to countries like the United Arab Emirates to help there. They've gone to the UK to help. At some point, there was some work in the US. And so, which means that we do have that human capital that can actually help us to move forward. It does not mean we'll do it alone, because collaboration is the name of the game in this industry. It is very important that we harness the skill, otherwise we'll lose it. I think as we say that, it is important that we do get a policy direction in the form of the integrated resource plan. So we are looking forward to hearing what Cabinet will say as per the Minister's assertions earlier on. In terms of the electricity side, what does it say to nuclear and the capacity and the megawatts to be installed? Because that's really the essence of it. We've got the skills, we can make it happen to industrialize and reindustrialize this country. Research reactor side, I think it allows us even more opportunity to delve more into producing more and diverse isotopes for various applications. Biggest area that is growing is non-destructive testing of equipment using isotopes. We really need to go into that area. So there is massive benefit for the country and for the continent at large. So I cannot overemphasize the point of industrialization. Thank you, Titisha.
Thank you very much. From Ryan, from the Rosatom perspective, what are the enabling conditions and key partnerships does Rosatom see as essential for successful deploying nuclear technology across the region, particularly in terms of local industry development, financing, and international collaboration?
Thank you very much, DDG. I think the key aspect is government commitments. You need, in any country, you need a government that is going to create an enabling environment for the nuclear sector to flourish. Either they're going to have state-to-state agreements where it's direct government ownership of nuclear power plants, and that's generally the case when it comes to big block nuclear power plants. But even when it comes to private-public partnerships or IPPs, the potential of BOO, SMRs in South Africa or elsewhere on the continent, you still need an enabling environment which essentially is created by government. So the key partnership at the end of the day needs to be with governments, and we need to have an environment that fosters industrialization, human resource development, but at the same time enables us to license potentially new technologies and do it in a manner that is going to be beneficial to the country as well as local industry. Thank you.
Thank you. And from the IEA perspective, Mr. Wang, how is the IEA supporting the future of nuclear in the African continent?
Yeah, thank you very much. This is actually our clear mandate since the beginning when the agency established in 1957. We have been supporting all member states' needs in pursuance of the nuclear energy and nuclear technology. And we actually help them develop a strong legislation framework. We help them to develop some kind of human resources development, which is very much needed for pursuing all this nuclear energy and the technology. And also we help them to prepare all this infrastructure-related issue, which I already mentioned under the agency's milestone approach, which I mentioned many things already in my previous intervention, including the financing funding and also all this site preparation and also national position, how we can help them, because that's I want to mention this very important initiative launched by the DG Grossi in COP27. It's called Atom for Net Zero Initiative, which help countries who are interested in using nuclear to really using the agency modeling and analytical tools to help them to have a deep analysis on the nuclear technology in helping them to roll up their energy transition pathway up to the 2050. And also I want to mention that is because SMR is getting more and more interest, but we always indicate that is from the agency's projections show that it's for the near term, I think the large reactor, especially long-term operation and also power upgrade will continue to play the major role for this nuclear's contribution to decarbonization. But SMR start to gradually release that is potential. But after that, and with the collective effort, agency and the member states, we believe that with the driven of innovation technology in the technology area, and SMR might demonstrate its can release a full potential. Because if you look at all the agencies' information captured in the SMR catalog, you can see SMR did have some very unique merits, more energy efficiency and more flexibility, and especially this dispatchable capacity, which is very needed for this the new power market, which has more and more renewable penetration. And also, there is also potential with the new design SMR. We can even burn the high-level waste. This is also another issue which are facing the nuclear community from the very beginning. So we worked closely with the countries, try to really, release that potential. And at the end of the day, I think the country still need to look at their national condition and to decide how they're going to use the nuclear technology, larger reactor or some SMR. But we are stand ready to support them, using agency methodology and tools to make sure they can make science-based decision, not just like a political driven decision. Thank you.
And thank you. And from Ms. Emma Wong from APRI, given the competition among global vendors in Africa's nuclear market, how can African countries ensure technology neutrality and long-term sustainability in their nuclear energy choices?
Thank you, DGG, for the question. That's a challenging one. We have a vendor here on the panel with us, and he might have some insights as well. However, at EPRI, we are also technology neutral. I have actually studied a lot of your reactor designs. I'm very impressed, actually. And I actually, personally, when I was doing a secondment, advocated saying, Rosatom's already done it. They've demonstrated it. It's already out there. I'm like, let's see the rest of the demonstration. So there is optionality. There is options. I say this because not every nation in Africa is the same. They have different constraints, they have different environments, and so they need to have options to choose from. It may not be that a floating reactor, can float everywhere. Not everyone has enough, coastline to accommodate this. So when you look at it and you think about it, there has to be options out there to choose from. Now, as I think Henri had mentioned, you may not have a nuclear option depending on what site you might be optioning. It may be that you're in the middle of a desert, you don't have access to water just yet. Maybe with some changes in the environments, maybe we'll get them one day, more water, and maybe we don't have the option to build a cooling system without having a big water source yet. So maybe you need to maybe go with solar or a different option. Optionality in all aspects, not just nuclear, is key to electrifying Africa and giving them the energy they need. What I would say is that, from my point of view, having studied so many different energy systems, is that nuclear has to be part of your decision making. It has to be part of what you think about if you want to actually maybe get the optimal electricity output that you need to get the value, to get what is the value that the community wants as well. One thing we didn't touch on, and maybe this also goes into the optionality portion here, is that the communities that you're going into also need to have an input on what types of options they're willing to have in their community. Sometimes they need to learn more about all the different options in order to make an informed decision, but having them along with you actually can drive your decision making and policies even faster because the people will be with you on that decision making. At EPRI, we have been learning that. I think in the United States, which is my home country, we've been learning that the hard way. People can actually, if they don't have the support there, they can shut down projects. Projects that were supposed to happen because of the people and what they have out there, and the outreach wasn't there. Some of those projects have had to move to different sites. And so even in some of our siting guides, we have gone back and revised our owning guides at EPRI to include, community engagement. What does that look like? How do you need to make sure that you drive this support with communities? Because communities can actually drive a project faster if they're with you.
No, thank you. Let's go back to Mr. Ngumalo from ESCOM. Given the transition and the imminent retiring of some of the coal-fired power stations in Mpumalanga province, is there any role that nuclear can play to replace this loss of baseload power?
Thank you again, TDG. Absolutely. I must again thank you, the IAEA, for the work has already been done. That's what I was talking about, that in this nuclear space, you really don't have to do it alone. I think it really shows also the value of our membership with the agency, that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So we are grateful for that. But I think the question that our CNO asked as well, that we need to, I think whether it can be done or not, I think that work has been done at a technical level. The first issue is now to say, look, this power plant were built on the mines and all of that, but that becomes a secondary issue in terms of our risk assessment and value chain, which we will be working, and also to say, when do you wait until what we have done, until Komati is fully shut down, or how do you transition? If you've got 6 units, when do you start bringing in these technologies and what are the risks? So it becomes critical then the interface between human resource department and the nuclear operation and the regulations part to say, how do we do it? Because you still got, because if you wait until you shut down the whole plant, then you create other problems as well. So that transition is something that we need to start grappling with while we are also doing all of that. So the work has been done, we understand what is needed, but the other portion for me, DDG, is this issue about the skills development. I was quite happy to learn when I was at EIA as well that Kenya, they've already have an SMR school. But in this country, to bring nuclear in the coal fleet or in the power region, like in Mpumalanga, as you said, it's not only about bringing the asset. How do you deal with the fear of community, just public, about the nuclear, so that nuclear education becomes critical? It cannot just you bring in and then people, they don't understand what is coming, what is the risk, what is the benefit. So there's a lot of work that we still need to do. How do we change? I mean, I remember, you know, the only thing closer to nuclear that we studied was atomic energies and all. That was about it. So until you get to the university level. But if you're going to roll it out at the scales we're talking about, that cannot be. So I think we need then to work with organizations to see how do we make sure that the educations on nuclear, not only from the universities, from schools, the curriculums need to change. Because we can't bring such a critical strategic component and then our education system stay as it was when we were still studying. So those are the issues for me that I'm currently grappling with as well, to say we need public education, we need child education system that incorporate this technology, because once communities and people understand what they are dealing with, otherwise then people just take what is said by those who are opposing the technology, and then there's no deep understanding of what are the benefits apart from the power. I think my colleague has outlined, but for me, really the focus is going to be on education. We need more, not only SMR, we're still going to build the big reactors as well. And then we still need to look after the running asset as well. So that balance as well. I know that, I mean, I always say to the team, we are all excited with the new technology, but for us and for me, Quebec is the #1 asset that still need to be maintained, operated correctly. There is no discussion on that. And then we need to build capacity then with experience from our Quebec and also across the globe. How do we deal with that? Because if we get excited without really making sure that, you know, we manage the risk, and we are quite grateful to have a very competent regulator as well that is also going to hold us to this standard, that we cannot create any risk or introduce new risk in other assets as well. So that transition for me is going to be critical. How do we manage it, DTG? But education is absolutely critical. We need more, maybe not only SMR schools, but nuclear schools in this country still as well. And then if we can collaborate within the continent, it's even better. Thanks you, DTG.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's come back to the regulator. So the regulator, what measures can be put in place that can form the basis for regional cooperation on the peaceful uses of nuclear technology supported by the National Nuclear Regulator? Mr. Phillips.
Thank you, DGG. So as we've said, the mechanisms that are important for our partners and our other countries are the bilateral agreements, where we enter into these bilateral agreements between two regulators or a newcomer country, and we're able to look at specific topics, for example, in the for nuclear reactors like siting and design and that type of thing at the beginning stages of projects. So South Africa, we've been through these kind of exercises looking at siting, licensing, and looking at designs. And we have expertise and know-how in terms of looking at licensing these type of activities. And we select these topics and engage with counterparts to look at sharing knowledge and knowledge of regulation. And we also draw on IAEA standards. We also draw on international standards to benchmark activities so that we produce the best outcomes in terms of safety. And as we've heard, safety is a high priority, and the regulator is really committed to this, and we would be keen to have these agreements with our counterparts on the African continent. Thank you.
And then lastly, from the CEO of NRADI, South Africa, through the National Radioactive Waste Disposal Institute, is progressing the design and the construction of the Central Interim Storage Facility for spent fuel. How important is stakeholder engagement in ensuring that the right solutions are implemented to dispose of the spent fuel safely and sustainably? And how is this being done to enable project and other future activities for success from the NRADI perspective?
I'm fortunate that I believe both Ms. Wong and Mr. Nkumalo spoke about the importance of stakeholder management, stakeholder engagement, and really just doing everything we can. You can never communicate enough in terms of nuclear. We come from a history of nuclear that comes from the atomic era of the nuclear bomb, and we have that to work against when we talk nuclear. And despite the we in this room, I believe we understand the value of nuclear, the safety thereof. If one actually looks at the statistics, nuclear is the safest, together with solar, in terms of actual people safety, the safety of people due to that technology, or in terms of operating that technology. But how many people out there have that view? And so we can never communicate enough. And the importance of this is really around building that trust and confidence of those out there, to build and to be seen as a completely transparent organization. Because really we have nothing to hide. We actually only have good stories to tell in terms of nuclear. So we need to get out there and tell those stories. And just from a waste perspective, in terms of the work that we're doing, radioactive or nuclear waste, what is interesting is those countries that are more advanced in terms of how, or further along in terms of managing the nuclear waste, seem to have higher support of the public in terms of, in general public, in terms of nuclear as an industry. So I think it's important that we share that we also do have all of those answers. Importantly also, besides, I think that we've discussed the importance of education and getting a really informed public. We need to get out there to listen to what people have to say. We can make better decisions when we know what the public knows. In communities, often remote communities, there's a lot of history that people have kept in their societies that we need to make sure we actually access. And that builds into our decision making. We can decide locations, we can decide, we can have a better understanding of risks around these facilities. Also, better understanding of the risks that we face. The public would have a better understanding, they would know what the risks are, but also have a better feel for that, which is usually good for the nuclear industry. And then also to be prepared for anything that when we talk emergency plans, we need to make sure people understand what that looks like. And I think also very important is the value of nuclear, because quite often when I talk to people in impoverished communities, they don't believe that nuclear has any benefit to them or could have any benefit to them. And so the journey is one that you need to start as early as possible to allow people to see how they fit into the nuclear story of that area, that country, whether it's a new nuclear plant, a SMR, or a waste facility. We have that responsibility to take care of this. And then the other part, in terms of our central interim storage facility and the regulatory, the regulatory process that we follow, we are very robust in processes of environmental impact assessments, the nuclear regulatory licensing process that is very dependent upon public engagement, public input to those processes. So we need to ensure, and it's an opportunity really to engage as early as possible. And ideally when you're not asking for anything as well, we're not asking for a license, but just to inform public. And when you then get to the point of asking for, or taking the licensing process through to license a new facility, we already have that confidence. And so that's the journey that we're on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, and we've come to the end of the session now. Let's look into what the panel has come up with. Is that one, we need nuclear energy for industrializing Africa. We need to look into both power and non-power applications, and we've also heard that about providing the different applications of these technologies, and they contribute to the socio-economic benefit of the country. Job creation was a very important element that the panel has put forward. We also then heard that there are a number of solutions that are being proposed from the Rosatom's point of view, floating power reactors as an SMR, looking into its deployment in the developing countries, and they see this as a solution. But it was emphasized that partnership and collaboration right across becomes important in being able to deploy nuclear technology. And the issues that were raised around the policy certainty, being able to have decisions to then being able to deploy the technology are then becoming important. And also then what was then mentioned is that skills followed projects. So if you have got projects, you are then able to attract and retain skills, and people get to work. Then other issues was the issues of the economic value associated with the SMR and the support that the IEA is providing to the African continent and the developing countries in terms of training, in terms of financing solutions that is provided to support countries that are developing these technologies. And what we heard from the EPRI point of view is that optionalities needs to be on the table, and the point of collaboration was emphasized. And then also the one point that was right across also emphasizes that safety is a priority in the nuclear industry, and we cannot compromise when it comes to safety. And ESCOM has emphasized this as the only operator for more than 40 years in the African continent that has operated a nuclear power plant, Quebec, and they said an accident in one area is an accident globally on the nuclear industry. So safety culture must be adhered at all material times. And then the issues that were put also in terms of the flexibility associated with the SMRs, that one could find that these are useful for data centers, and these are also useful for desalination, process heat, and all these other applications. But then the issue that also came forward very strongly is that we need to look into waste solutions, because remember, this kind of technology, one needs to be assured that waste that's generated is safely stored. And Radi was very strong to say, we need to instill public confidence, and we must engage communities and make sure that we are transparent in all the work that we do. And there are waste solutions that are already on the table, and Radi said we need to look into central interim storage facility as an interim measure that will then enable us to build towards a deep geological solution, which is being done in other countries, and there is collaboration that's taking place. Then, of course, we then also heard from Nexa that the issue of skills and collaboration becomes important, and the government commitments to nuclear development becomes an important. Rosatom emphasized that without the government backing, the project then becomes very not stable in terms of its continuity. So there is that role that government needs to play. Then, of course, the issue of the state of readiness of the SMRs. We are told some SMRs are already starting, but the IEA is projecting that these are going to be much more confirmed to be ready post-2030, and that's the time horizon that we look into, although there are some few SMRs that have already started generating electricity. I think the examples that were mentioned was the PBMR example in China, the floating reactor in Russia. Those are SMRs that are already starting to generate electricity, though there are some others that are also under construction. So on the basis of this, it's clear that there are some issues that still needs to be looked into. In particular, the ESCOM raised the issue regarding the repurposing of the coal-fired power plant using small modular reactors, that we will need to have to do a whole range of work in terms of site selection and site investigations to deal with potential issues of seismics that would need to be looked into. And we hope that the study that was done by the IEA will go a long way to assist the industry in determining the viability of using nuclear to repurpose the coal-fired power plant. And from April, we were made to understand that countries would need to use solutions that are suitable for each of the countries, and there should be options on the table to make sure that they have a choice to make. Then issue of stakeholder engagement, stakeholder involvement was emphasized to make sure that the industry moves along with the stakeholders in the development of nuclear technology. I think those are more key issues that have come out of the panel. It's been a very informative panel, and we thank all the contributions that the panel members have made, and we hope that Excellencies, delegates, you will find that the insight that has been shared here will be useful for the industry to advance the nuclear. There is an agreement that nuclear is part of a solution when we look to clean baseload electricity, looking into a technology that has got a long lifetime in terms of the designs. It's an infrastructure that have got a design life of 60 years, and one could also extend it for another 20 years. So an investment in nuclear is an investment that's well worth investing because of the benefits that the nuclear technology provide over the long term in the part of the energy mix. I'd like to thank all the panel members for the contributions, and the regulator was very clear that there is a need to collaborate right across. It shares the experience in South Africa, and it works with other regulators across the continent. Thank you.